Hey y'all, this is Marie from our Okie Homestead. I'm working in the kitchen again. Well y'all, the farmer we was getting beef from is no longer selling beef. So husband went back to buying these rolls, which is 73% lean. And I'm going to, it's all thawed out. I've let it sit here and thaw out throughout the day. And now I'm going to brown it and can it. And it's been raining last couple days, so I haven't been able to get outside and work anymore around the sheds or anything. So I'm doing this instead. And I had some people was wanting, that had asked me about doing a canning video anyway with the pressure canner. Pressure canners people are scared of a lot of the time. If the pressure gets too high, that's going to pop out. It's not going to explode as long as you're keeping an eye on it. You want to make sure you keep an eye on the pressure canner whenever you're using it. That's the biggest thing, is just sticking close to it. And that means normally I'll sit at my dining room table and like read through the canning book or something like that. The information is all right here in the ball book, including you figuring out from your sea level how many pounds of pressure you're going to need. Higher elevations have to have higher pressure. And first thing I always do, because of the fact that the jars can sit for quite a long time on the shelf in here waiting to be used, I always pull them down, pull them out, and wash them. Wash the rings and the lids. And then the lids, even though they say it's no longer necessary, I still like to do it. And that's just put them in a little sauce pot on the back of the stove and just have it going real low so it keeps that water nice and warm. Got all my jars sitting over here in the dish drainer. So now all I gotta do is start browning my ground beef. Okay, now in the canner, you don't want the jars sitting on the very bottom. So it comes with the piece that you put in there. Now I've got water I just added to my pan that I cooked my hamburger meat in. And it's just to make kind of a broth to go over the rest of the hamburger to get the jar filled where it needs to be. Okay, so I'm just going to sit here with my funnel. And I'm going to fill up my jars most of the way full. Kind of waiting for this to warm up good. And I got a ladle so that when I get ready I can just ladle the liquid over the top. Make sure you got it down in there good. So I packed it back down in there pretty good. So I'll add some more. Probably add just a little more. And you just keep doing that, going jar to jar, filling them up, just like I did this one. Gotta wipe the rim. Since my water's hot that's going in the hamburger meat, I'm going to have to make sure and put hot water in my canner so that it's not a sudden temperature change. Make sure and get all the extra air out of there. Now, I added about half of the salt that it says that you can add to your water. I don't want it fully salted, but I did need a little bit of salt for some flavor. But that's all you do. You just keep doing that and go jar to jar when I get It just takes time to brown your ground beef and then get it scooped into your jars. It just makes it that much easier for those kind of nights whenever it's like, uh-oh, you forgot to thaw something out, you're tired, you've been working all day. It just makes it handy to have these jars of the ground hamburger meat canned and on the shelf stable, ready to go. You don't have to worry about if the electric goes out, it'll stay good. Make sure and date the tops with the year that you can them, and always rotate your stock. Make sure your jars don't have any chips around the lid either. To do some rearranging. They're all in there, and you want to make sure that the jars are covered by about 1 inch of water. I'm going to start bringing my temperature up. The jars, by the time I got all that done and was fixing to put them in here, I've already got lukewarm water in here, and the jars had already cooled down somewhat, so they're doing pretty good. And once I see it starting to steam, I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on it and then tighten it down. It don't take but a second. It's getting pretty warm, so I'm going to go ahead and get my lid on it. Just slides right on. And you make sure the weight's off of it. It tells you right on the top how to slide it. Tells you line up this arrow with the middle of this, and then you can just slide it closed. And we'll start seeing steam come out of here once it starts heating up. And then once it starts really getting hot, this thing will pop up. But right now, we've got our temperature on high because we want to get it to come up and start boiling. So that's where we're at now. Just now starting to get a little bit of steam out of that vent. Just a little. I don't even know if y'all can see it yet. You want to make sure it's steaming really good for like 10 minutes before you put your weight on it. And then you're going to have to adjust your heat down as your pressure goes up. I'll show you that as we go along. Your little thing just popped up. Okay, it's really steaming and going good now. Hard to catch that on camera, so you just put your weight on there and it'll start building pressure, and you really got to watch it because it won't, it'll take it a little bit, get up to where you need it. Where you need it depends on your elevation. For us, it's like 12 pounds of pressure, so I'll run it between 12 and 14. So I'll just sit and watch it. When it gets up to about 10, I start really cutting the heat back. Right now, I've still got my element up on high. Just touch that pot. The canner is very hot already at this point. So you got to be careful and not touch it. You can see the pressure's already climbed up a little bit. What that weight does is it closes it off. See, it's already went up. So you really got to keep a good eye on it at this point. You don't want it to get, you can see where it says caution over here. It starts getting up in here and you're headed for trouble. But yeah, see, it's already climbing. I'm going to let it get up there to about 10, which will take just a few more minutes. And then I'm going to go ahead and start turning my heat down, because it'll still be building, because you know, electric stovetop, it takes a little while for them to kind of cool down. So by the time it reaches its pressure, and I'm usually, by the time it hits the right pressure, and I adjust my heat down, and I'll adjust it down, a lot of the times by the time I'm right at the right amount of pressure and I've slowly adjusted it down, it doesn't take a whole lot of heat. It's usually like not very much more above simmer. So I'll come back to it here in a minute. Alright, now it's just been a few minutes later and here we go. We're up to 10, so I'm going to start cutting it back. I'm going to cut it back pretty drastic at first, since we're fixing to be right on the 10 there. This is the trickiest part, getting it to just the right temperature. If you have one that, like out of your whole batch, one doesn't seal, you can go ahead and refrigerate it for a day or two, and then go ahead and use it in a recipe. Otherwise, you'd have to reprocess it all over again for another 90 minutes. And that's 90 minutes after you bring everything back up to temperature and up to pressure. So you got to really kind of keep an eye on it. So we're over with the glare from the oven light. You can't hardly see. Right, there we go. It's just a little over 10. And it's still climbing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut me back some more here. I thought it was already 12. It's just 11. So yeah, I want it up to 12. Okay, I'm right at 12. So I'm going to leave it right where it's at for the moment. And I'll come back and check it. I'm going to keep an eye on it, but I'll come back with y'all here in a minute to show you what I do, if I need to adjust it down anymore or not. And if not, then I can set my timer for 90 minutes. But I have to make sure that my pressure is going to stay where I need it first before I set my timer. Yeah, it's still climbing, so I'm going to have to turn it down some more. Like I said, I just turn it down a little at a time. Now, if you was really worried about it, the pressure was like building too fast before you could get your stove to cool down a little bit, you could always take this and remove, use a pot holder and remove the weight to let some of the pressure off. That's a quick way to release some of that pressure. But you don't want to release too much at one time, especially when it comes to cooling it down and cooling your jars down. But if you had to in an emergency, you could just take a pot holder and grab that off, let some steam out, and that'd drop your pressure down. I got it all the way down to simmer now. I don't know if y'all can see that. So hopefully here in a minute we'll see it not climb anymore and possibly even drop back just a little hair. And at this point I could go ahead and set my timer and start timing it, but I need to make sure that it stays at least above 12. So I'm going to set my timer for 90 minutes. Oops. I don't know if y'all can hear that over the wind chimes. You can hear it like bubbling in there. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this. And we're on the countdown, hour and a half. Okay, it's been hanging right about 13.5 pounds of pressure, or the 13, I think it's pounds of pressure. Not even, yeah, pounds per square inch. Anyway, that's how much pressure it's been at now for 10 minutes on just right at simmer on my stove top. So I'm not messing with it. It's between 12 and 14 like I want it, so I'm not even going to mess with it. And now I'm going to have to really watch it because I've turned the oven off since dinner's done, so it's liable to cool down a little bit. And if it gets below that 12, I'm going to have to start my hour and a half all over again, and I don't want to have to do that. I'd like to get this done before midnight. It's been right about just a hair under 14 the whole time. We're down to the last 4 minutes and 55 seconds. So we're almost to the point where we can shut it off. Almost. See him still bubbling inside. That one already pinged. These other ones will here probably in the next few minutes. And watch this one. I think there's just one more that needs to seal. It's this one back here. Looks like the rest of them is already sealed, except for that one, which they're still cooling. You can see it's still bubbling in there. They're all doing that. I'll just leave them sitting here for the night. This is what they look like once they've totally cooled down. As you can see, I ended up with a little extra fat in some of them. Some of them, there wasn't hardly any. One thing you can do if you have like indigestion issues, or you're trying to cut back on calories, cut back some fat, when you open it, just scoop that top layer of fat off of there and it'll decrease the amount of fat in it. Or leave the fat in there, and then that gives you extra flavoring for like soup. So that's it. I'll be doing chicken next. I hope that this helps somebody out. That took 8 pounds of beef, and it made 2, 4, 6, 8 cans, pint size. I used the wide mouth pint for my meats because it's almost a pound of meat in each jar. Probably just a hair less, maybe 3/4 of a pound, because there was enough beef left over that I made beef and cheese enchiladas. And that is one thing that this beef can be used for. Just drain off any extra liquid that's in it and add, put it in, or even just throw it in a skillet and let it cook off the extra liquid. You can add your taco seasoning if you like to add taco seasoning to your meat for something like that. Or you can just take the whole jar and dump it in a pot of soups. I mean, it's already pre-cooked, so it's like you don't have to worry about, oops, I forgot to thaw something out for tonight's dinner. When stuff is canned, you can just pull it off the shelf. It's already totally cooked. I always take the rings off before storing them. And you always want to make sure and like try to pry it up with your finger. If you can pry it up with your finger or it won't hold, just make sure your hand's underneath and then hold it from the lid. You know it's good and secure if you can do that. Okay? So you always want to double check that. You always might want to make sure that there's no movement on your lids. Okay, if you can move that lid and it moves up and down a little bit, then it didn't seal. But, I heard every single one of them ping. You might have actually caught that on the video. I'll put some video in there when I was waiting for them to ping. But that's it. I hope this helped somebody out. To the chickens. Y'all have a good one.